Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you another apocalypse attack against the Caro-Kann. My round 8 game was against an English FIDE master, Nelson Jonathan, and if you have seen the round 2 game from the Pula Open, you will know that IM Doric played the apocalypse attack against my Caro-Kann, and that was the first time I saw the opening. So, after e4 c6, knight f3 d5, instead of playing the two knights, white exchanges and goes knight e5. And my opponent in round 8 repeated the opening. And I'll give you my thoughts when knight e5 was played, or actually when e d5 was played. I wanted to run away and scream, and I was so mad at myself because I have not studied the opening after the round 2 game. Normally I don't analyze my games with an engine during a tournament, nor do I, do anything apart from just analyzing them with my friends afterwards, whoever's playing the tournament with me. So I was starting to beat myself because I hadn't learned the opening properly. Against Doric, I played it well. I played the best moves for like 20 moves, ended up losing the game. You can see the game in the playlist. But still, it would have been good to actually prepare something because I was improvising. So I had decided to repeat the same thing I did there, even though I didn't know it was the best thing. It worked. I got a comfortable position, so I did the same thing, knight f6. Now the idea behind knight e5 is to put pressure down this diagonal, so if you aren't careful, bishop b5 and you could be in trouble, although knight c6 is a playable move. So the apocalypse attack is an interesting opening, definitely new for me, and the weird part was, in round 2 and in round 8 I faced the same opening with black on the same board against two titled players. In the first game, Doric played d4, Mr. Nelson played bishop b5. And I repeated the same thing. Eventually Doric played bishop b5 as well. I played knight bd7. The reason you don't play knight c6 is because you lose a pawn, and if you go bishop d7, well then you could be slightly worse. This is similar to what happens in the accelerated Panov. You have to be ready to meet d4, c4, queen a4 with a6, rook b8 and b5. So you want your bishop defending the diagonal, and if that happens, you are going to develop the bishop to b7. Okay, d4 now we are transposing, and I'm doing the same thing I did against my opponent in round 2, so g6. Obviously I don't want to go e6, and I want to develop, so that's fine. Castles, and bishop g7. Now, in my game against Doric, he played rook e1, and when I castled, he played knight back to f3. And I sort of understood why. It could be uncomfortable to allow knight takes e5 followed by knight e4. That was my reasoning. And in this game my opponent did not play knight f3 at any point. He played bishop d3 here. And I immediately castled, like maybe after 2 seconds. However, I have a big advantage here, and the knight on e5 can be taken. So let's see what happens. Knight takes e5, d takes e5, and knight g4. How do you defend your pawn? I challenge you to defend your pawn. If you play f4, you're losing due to queen b6, so that's out of the question. If you play bishop f4, then I just take on e5, so that doesn't work. So the best move is actually to go bishop b5 check, and after king f8, you still lose the pawn. Knight c3, d4, you still lose the pawn, eventually. I didn't see that. I castled straight away, without even considering knight e5. And then my opponent played rook e1, and I started thinking. So I thought I had an advantage here with knight e5. That's correct, black is winning. I did not see why, and I messed up the continuation. So had I studied the opening and my round 2 game properly, I would have won this game on move 9. Because there is no defense against what black can do here. Why don't you pause the video and try to find the win for black? Okay, so first of all, knight e5 is correct. And after d e5, I played the move knight e4. And knight e4 seemed very interesting to me because after knight e4, f6 loses. F3. No, maybe it doesn't actually. f3, queen b6, bishop e3, queen b2. Well, you have to play... yeah, it is losing, it is losing. Okay, so f3 is out of the question, so knight d2 is sort of the only move. And after knight d2 I have to take on e5, but my e4 pawn is hanging, and the engine says equal. However, black to play and win, knight g4, game over, that's it. It's as simple as that. You pick up a central pawn with massive pressure along the a1, h8 diagonal, and white is busted. Let me give you an example. If f4, that's easy, queen b6. Resigns. King h1, knight f2, king f1, queen f2, mate, bishop e3, you take the bishop. That's it. On bishop f4, the win is slightly more complicated. You go f6, and the pawn is hanging. For example, ef6, bishop f6, you have to defend b2, so c3, and now bishop h4, and you're not defending f2 anymore. There's no way to defend. Your bishop's hanging, f2 is hanging, on bishop e3, bishop f2, on bishop g3, bishop g3, and then you take on f2. So after knight g4, the best move should be knight c3, and then you just take on e5, with pressure on the bishop, with pressure along the diagonal, and black wins. And when we were playing the game, I had just played knight e4, my opponent was thinking, and IM Doric came close to our board, looked at the position, I smiled. He was looking at the score sheet confused, and then he went away. And I bet he knew that I had blundered, I mean that my opponent had blundered, and that I hadn't played the best move, knight g4. Because in our game he played knight f3, he knew that he had to retreat. In any case, after knight d2, it was equal. And after bishop e5, knight e4, d4, bishop e4, I thought, when I was visualizing knight e4, I saw queen c7, and I thought I had an advantage. Which is wrong, it's just equal, g3, and there is nothing here. I thought after g3 I'd have, you know, bishop h3, rook d8, a couple of tempi, probably some pressure, but c2 isn't weak, white's king isn't weak, the queen has plenty of squares, and I don't really have an initiative, it's just equal. So rook d8, which is best, but it's still equal, queen e2, bishop h3. And now bishop g6 doesn't really work. You cannot take on g6 because, well, what do I actually throw in? I remember looking at bishop g6. Oh, excuse me, yeah, mate is hanging. Oh, Jesus, okay, takes queen e5, rook e5, rook e1, mate. That's why it doesn't work. Okay. So that's why, one of the reasons I played bishop h3, they're hanging mate, so they have to be careful. So my opponent played bishop f3, attacking the bishop. And now I had a couple of choices, f6, bishop f6, or bishop d6. I couldn't decide what to do. One of the ideas behind bishop f3 is to trap my bishop with g4. Now it doesn't work, because h2 is hanging. And, you know, then I take on h2. However, if my bishop is on f6, I was kind of afraid of g4. And I didn't want to allow that, so I played bishop d6, which is a fine move. All three moves are okay, but this does allow white's bishop to get into play on g5. And now how do I defend? I need to go rook e8, I think. f6 is a really awful move due to bishop d5, so I played rook e8. Rook a d1, rook a d8, and here my opponent played queen b5, and I was getting worried. So b7 is hanging, first of all. Secondly, the bishop is coming to h6, and the queen could come into the king side via g5 or h4. It's getting uncomfortable, and if I play b6, my opponent can play queen c6, and I thought I couldn't trade, because after queen c6, bishop c6, rook f8, bishop e7. And I lose a pawn. So I had decided to go b6 and not take the queen. I also could have gone rook d7, which I didn't like because of bishop h6. But I can just double up my rooks on the d file and it's fine. For some reason I didn't like this. I kept seeing, you know, weird stuff with something like c4, queen b3, queen c3, and so on. So I played b6. My opponent played queen c6. And I could have traded. I didn't calculate this properly. This to me was very complicated. I kept thinking that I'm losing a pawn. However, on queen c6, bishop c6, bishop d7, I got this far, rook d6, and I thought, okay, that's it. But that's not it. E d6, rook e8, of course I take with the bishop, bishop d8, bishop c6, and draw agreed. I thought I would lose a pawn. I did not lose a pawn. So I had miscalculated during the game that on b6, queen c6, I couldn't take the queen. Therefore I played queen b8, which is slightly inferior. Now the queen comes to a4, and it's coming to h4. I played bishop d7, although that's a pretty bad move. I should have gone queen c7. That's the engine recommendation. And, you know, if queen c6 were repeat, if queen, h4, then I may have bishop f5 or bishop e6. Although bishop e6 is scary due to, you know, rook e6 in some cases. So I should have gone queen c7. Instead I played bishop d7. And after queen h4, it's getting really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. Bishop d7 is a huge blunder, after which black is winning. Oh, sorry, white is winning, according to the engine. Now, my e7 pawn is hanging. So how do I defend it? I cannot go e6. So I had anticipated this and decided to go bishop e6, defending my pawn. However, after bishop c6, what do I do now? If I go rook f8, then I just lose the exchange. There's bishop h6. Bishop h6, queen c7, queen a4, bishop f5. I didn't want to do that. And if on rook f8, bishop takes e7, then bishop e7, queen e7, I'm just down a pawn. I think my opponent would have played bishop h6. I mean, I had to go rook f8. Now queen c7, maybe, you know, and if bishop f8, I think I can safely take, and you know, bishop for a rook, it's not the end of the world. Let's say queen e4, bishop f5, you know, there's some compensation. However, I knew I was much worse or busted. So after bishop d7, I thought I was going to lose relatively quickly. My opponent played bishop d5, which is the best move. And now I don't have moves. I don't have anything to do. So I played bishop e6, knowing that there's a sacrifice possible, but I had calculated it until black saves the game. That's insane. White has a winning sacrifice and black is losing. First of all, bishop e6 is possible. F e6, rook e6. I was going to go bishop c5 with some pressure. And if rook d8, queen d8, now they sort of have to be careful. It's not too easy to break through. But the key move is rook e6. So my calculation went rook e6, f e6 I have to take, bishop e6. If I go king h8, it's mate. Just bishop f6 and mate. So that's it. So I have to go king g7. And now I thought, okay, queen h6 check, king h8, how does white proceed? I couldn't see a follow-up. There is a follow-up. And Daniel and I found it when we were analyzing game the evening after the round was played. White to play and win rook d4. Rook d4, that's it. I'm not defending h7. There is nothing here. There's nothing here. However, on king g7, my opponent did not play queen h6. He played bishop h6. Okay, king h8, only move. And now he played bishop f7, which is good enough. White is still winning. I played bishop e5. I wanted to initiate trades and play bishop f6. Of course, bishop takes e8 now loses to rook takes d1. However, I did not see what white could have played to win the game. My opponent took on d8, and black is taking over. Black is better after rook d8. My opponent could have gone rook e1. A very simple move, just attacking the bishop. Now the rook is attacked, the bishop, has to move. somewhere. I have nowhere to move my rook, and after bishop f6, you don't even have to, take the rook on f8. You can continue the attack with something like queen h3, and black is busted. However, my opponent took on d8, I took on d8, and then he played bishop g5, which is the losing move. He could have gone queen e4, which would have made things interesting. Maybe bishop f6, and white still has a bunch of pieces around my king. Black is better, but it's about -1. After my opponent's next move, bishop g5, I'm just winning. He wanted to take on g6, I understand that. So I just played king g7. Now if you play bishop h6 or queen h6, I just take your bishop, and you don't have anything. So he had to move his bishop, and now bishop f6, and that's the end of the attack. I'm just up the exchange with a very good position, with a very safe king. All of a sudden, rook d1 is coming, the queen is coming into the game, and there isn't much white can do. He played queen h6, excuse me, king h8, then he took on f6, I took, and he had maybe 10 minutes on the clock when he played his next move. And I don't know what I was expecting white to play. I don't think there's a good idea for white here, but he lost the game in a single move, bishop f7, and this is a very simple tactical mistake. I played rook d1 check, king g2, and queen b7 check, and he resigned. This double attacks the king and the bishop, and black is just up a rook. So I think my opponent... Okay, first of all, he lost the game out of the opening. I didn't use that. I didn't seize the moment. I didn't find the best move. I blundered with knight e4. It was equal. But then he outplayed me so precisely. It felt like I was being suffocated. Sometimes when you finish a game, you just feel exhausted. And even though this was, 30 moves? This middle game took maybe 15 moves. It felt like I was playing badly and like I didn't have any good options. He just played very natural moves, and they kept making my position worse until finally I had allowed rook takes e6, and I was completely losing. However, I had miscalculated that black can defend. I didn't see rook d4, I didn't see rook e1. Luckily for me, neither did he, and he blundered his advantage away and lost the game. Definitely not a clean game, definitely not a good game by either side. I was winning once, lost all the advantage. He was winning once, lost all the advantage, and then he blundered the simple tactical trick. I think he played a very good middle game. A bad opening, bad finish, but very good middle game. Yeah, that was another apocalypse attack. I hope to meet the opening again, because now I know how to play against it. Now I have actually studied it, I have prepared it, I know the patterns, and I'm not going to be surprised again. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. See you in the next one. Bye bye.